Good morning, fourth graders. We are going to try this video again, and hopefully it has sound because the first time through it did not, which we figured out the problem. I had my iPad plugged in. Apparently it doesn't record my voice. So this will be round 2 of compare and order fractions. Sorry that it is getting out late. It should have been out much earlier, but then I realized there was no sound on the video. So I hope you guys are having a great long weekend. Happy Tuesday. Today is 2/2/22. So it is Tuesday. Pretty neat. All right, we're going to go maybe a little quicker than last time on this to hopefully make it a shorter video. We're going to be talking about comparing and putting fractions in order today. And there are 2 different ways we can compare fractions according to the top of our page. So the first one we're going to talk about is the number of the parts selected is the same as the parts of the whole. So the names for one whole. You guys are usually very good at this in deciding when a fraction is equal to one whole. So anytime the numerator and the denominator match, then it is one whole. So 2/2, 3/3, 4/4, 5/5, and we could keep going with many, many numbers. As we remember, the top is the part, the bottom is the whole. So the numerator is the part, the denominator is the whole. And when you have all of the parts to your whole, you have one whole pizza or pie. So like if I was working with ninths, if I had 9 ninths, I have one whole pizza. Okay. Over here, we have names for a half. The number of parts selected is half the number of parts in the whole. So again, we have our part and we have our whole, part over whole. The part is going to be half of the whole, and that means it would be equal to 1/2. So a couple of things about this. You can only do this when the denominator is an even number. If it's an odd number, you're going to end up with a decimal for your numerator, and you can't have that. So 4, half of 4 would be 2. Half of 6 would be 3. Half of 8 would be 4. Half of 10 would be 5. Half of 12 would be 6. Half of 14 would be 7. And we could keep going and do half of 16 is 8. Half of 18 is 9. Half of 20 is 10. And we could go on and on making fractions that are equal to 1/2. Remember, most of the time we are reducing these fractions down to a half. Well, let's come down here and look. We're going to do some of these together, and then I'm going to have you do a few on your own to see how well you do. The first section says, draw a circle around fractions that are names for one whole. So that means the numerator and the denominator match. Draw a triangle around the fractions that are names for 1/2. That means the top number is half of the bottom number. So 4/8, well, we know that's not a whole because they don't match, but what is half of 8? Well, half of 8 is 4, so this would actually be equal to 1/2, and it looks like I spit on my paper, I'm sorry. So 4/8 is equal to a half. 5/6, well, we know it's not going to be a whole because it would be 6/6. And then it's not a half either because half of 6 would be 3. So this one we're just going to leave alone. It's neither a half nor a whole. Then the next one, 7/7. Well, the numerator and the denominator match, which means it's another name for a whole, and we would circle that one. Then we have 3/4. Well, they don't match, so it's not a whole, but 3 and 4, well, what is half of 4? Half of 4 would be 2 to make it a half, so 3/4 would not be a half or a whole. We will leave it alone. Then we have 3/6. Well, it's not a whole because they don't match, but what is half of 6? Half of 6 is 3. So 3/6 is the same as 1/2. So we're going to put a triangle around 3/6. Then we have 2/3. Well, it's definitely not a whole because that would be 3/3. And then we can't divide an odd number in half when we're working with fractions because we would have 1.5 up here and we can't have a decimal for a numerator. So this one would be neither half nor whole. Then we have 12/12. Well, they match, which means it is 1 whole. Then we have 4/5. Again, we have an odd number on the bottom. Half of 5 would be 2.5, but since we cannot have a decimal up here, and since this is not 2.5, this would be neither a half nor a whole. Let's look down at this next information box. This one is going to tell us how to compare and order fractions when they have different denominators and numerators. We're going to determine or decide if the fraction is greater than, less than, or equal to a half. And there's a couple ways we can do this. Today, we're going to do this by comparing them to 1/2. On Friday, we talked about how we can compare fractions by making the denominators the same. Today, we're going to compare them by looking at if they are bigger than a half or smaller than a half or equal to a half. So, the example they give us is 3/8. Well, we want to think about 3/8. Well, what would a half be if my denominator is 8? Well, half of 8 is 4, so 4/8 is equal to 1/2. Well, I only have 3/8, so that does not equal 1/2. If I got my little fraction buddies over here, I would have a half, and then I've only got 3/8. I would need 1 more eighth to make those equal. So we know that 3/8 is smaller than 1/2, which is what they say right here. Now we're going to look at 6/10. Well, what is half of 10? Half of 10 is 5. So I have 5/10 equals 1/2. Well, I have 6/10 over here. So that means that if I have 6/10, here's my half. Here's 6/10. Well, if we look, and it helps maybe to flip it over, but here's my half. Sorry, I have had a cold all weekend. Here's my half, and here's my 6/10. It is bigger by 1/10. So 6/10 would be bigger than a half. And since 3/8 is smaller than a half and 6/10 is greater than a half, then 6/10 is bigger than 3/8. Let's come down here and work some of these together. This one we're comparing to 1 whole. 3/4 compared to 1 whole. Well, if the numerator is smaller than the denominator, then it is less than a whole. So we're going to write 3/4 is less than 1 whole. On number 3, we have 7/8 compared to 1/2. Well, what is half of 8? Half of 8 is 4. So 4/8 would be the same as 1 whole, but I have 7/8. So I actually have more than 1/2. I'm sorry, I think I said 1 whole that last time. But 4/8 is equal to 1/2. I have 7/8, which is more than 4/8. So this is going to be 7/8 is greater than a half. Number 4, we've got 1/2 and we've got 5/6. So when I look at this one, I want to think, what is half of 6? Well, half of 6 is 3. Okay, so 3/6 is the same as 1/2, but I have 5/6, which would mean I have more than a half. And to show you that, here's 1/2. Here is 3/6. Those would be equal. But I have 5/6, so I would add 2 more to that, and that would be much bigger than 1/2. It's actually almost a whole. I would only need 1/6 more to make it a whole. Then number 5 says 4/3 versus 1 whole. Well, immediately those alarms should be going off in your head because 4 is bigger than 3. We have an improper fraction. And anytime we have an improper fraction, remember, all fractions are division problems. So let's divide to make this a mixed number. 4 divided by 3, well, 3 goes into 4 one time, and then I have 1 left over, and we keep the denominator the same. So this is actually equal to 1 1/3. So 1 whole and 1/3 would be greater than 1 whole by itself. Number 6 is 3/7 and 1/2. Well, I can't divide 7 in half and get a number I could put up here, but I still can divide 7 and figure out, is 3 going to cross the halfway mark or will it not quite make it? So if I divide 7 in half, I actually get 3.5. Now, I couldn't write my fraction like this, but just to show you that 3 is going to be less than 1/2 for 3/7. So half would be bigger. All right, let's come down here, and in just a minute, I'm going to have you do some of these on your own. Number 7 is 4/8 versus 1/2. Well, 8 is even. If we divide 8 in half, we get 4. So 4/8 is equal to 1/2. Now, I want you to do 8, 9, 10, and 11 by yourself, so you're going to have to pause the video. And then once you've done all 4 of those, I want you to push play again, and we're going to see how well you did. All right, you should have pushed pause and have numbers 8, 9, 10, and 11 done. If you don't, go back and do those real quick, but we're going to do them together to see how well you did. We have 1 whole versus 3/6. Well, this is pretty simple because our numerator is smaller than our denominator, which means 1 whole is going to be bigger. This would have to be 6/6 for it to be equal. And for this to be bigger, and the numerator would have to be bigger than 6. If you put that 3/6 is less than 1 whole, I want you to put a star by your number 8. If you didn't get that one right, go ahead and fix it. And I want you to circle the number 8. Number 9 is 9/9 versus 1 whole. Well, 9 and 9 are the same, woohoo, which means that is the same as 1 whole. Hopefully you got that equal sign in there. If you got that one right, go ahead and put a star by it. If you didn't, make sure you fix it and you can circle the number 9. Then number 10. Number 10 is 4/10 versus 1/2. Well, half of 10 is 5. I gave you the answer. So 5/10 would be the same as 1/2. Well, I only have 4/10, which means that I don't quite have a half. So half is going to be greater. So you should have 4/10 is less than 1/2. If you got that one right, go ahead and put a star. If you did not, circle it and make sure you put the right symbol in there. And then the last one for this section, number 11, 5/10 versus 4/8. Well, we don't have a half or a whole on either side. Each other one we had a half or a whole, and then something we had to figure out. This one we have to figure both of them out, so it's a little bit trickier. Well, let's just do it like we've been doing. What's half of 10? Half of 10 is 5. Half of 8 is 4. Well, this is 5/10 and 5/10, 4/8 and 4/8. These both are equal to 1/2, so they're equal to each other. That one was a tricky one. Hopefully you got that equal sign in there. If you did, I want you to put a smiley face right here next to the 11. If not, go ahead and circle the number 11 and make sure you put that equal sign there. All right, on the bottom, we're going to write the fractions in order from least to greatest. We have a half in the middle for each of them, so we just have to decide which fraction is smaller than half and which one is bigger than half. So let's look at the first one. The first one is 3/4. Well, if I cut 4 in half, I get 2. Well, 3/4 is bigger than 2/4, so that means 3/4 is bigger than a half. So 3/4 will go here. Remember, another name for 1/2 is 2/4. Now, if we cut 8 in half, we get 4. 4/8 versus 3/8. Well, this is equal to a half, which would mean 3/8 is smaller than 1/2. Then, on the next one, number 13, we have 2/6 and 7/10. Well, let's look at 6. If we divide 6 in half, we're going to make it equal to a half. We would have 3/6. 3/6 is bigger than 2/6. 2/6 is going to be smaller than a half. If we reduce 2/6 down, remember, whatever we do to the top, we have to do the bottom. We could divide the top and the bottom by 2, and we would actually get 1/3. Okay, so 1/3 is smaller than 1/2. That would mean 7/10 is greater. 5/10 would be equal. 7/10 is bigger than a half. All right, let's look at number 14. We have 3/3 and 1/4. Well, I want you to think about your ruler on this, because on your ruler we have a half and we also have a 1/4. And on our ruler, we know that 1/4 inch is less than 1/2 inch. Remember, we go 1 1/4, 1 1/2, 1 3/4, and then 1 whole. And 3/3 is the same as 1 whole. It would be bigger than a half. Let's come down here and let's look at these. Again, we have same as our ruler, 1/4 we know is less than 1/2. If we think about our ruler in these situations, it really helps us. Then we have 5/5. Well, 5/5 is the same as 1 whole. 1 whole is going to be 2 halves put together, which means it is bigger than 1/2. Then on number 16, half of 6 is 3. Well, I have 4/6. So I have more than 1/2 because remember, 3/6 is the same as 1/2. So 4/6 is bigger. That means 3/8 would be smaller because when we split 8 in half, we get 4. And we don't have 4/8. The last one is number 17. I have 1/2 and I have 3/4 and 2/8. Well, again, if I think about my ruler, I have a half and I have 3/4. And on our ruler, we know it goes 1/4, 2/4, or 1/2, 3/4. So 3/4 is going to be here. We can also do it this way, where we split 4 in half and we get 2/4. It is bigger than a half. 2/8 is going to go here, and actually 2/8, if we reduce it, we divide it by 2, top and bottom, we end up with 1/4. So we have our ruler measurements. We have a 1/4, a half, and 3/4. All right, let's flip it over onto the back. And we are going to complete the fraction to make the statement true. So the first row is making it all equal to 1 whole. For the first one, if it's going to be equal to a whole, that means the numerator and the denominator have to be the same. Well, they gave you the denominator. All you have to do is make the numerator the same so that it matches and makes 1 whole. Number 5, I'm only going to do a couple of these with you. You'll do the rest on your own. We're going to make this equal to a half. Well, what is half of 4? Half of 4 is 2. That's one way that you can solve it. Another way you can solve it is think, how did I get from 2 to 4? What did I multiply by? Well, I multiplied by 2 and I got 4. And whatever I do to the bottom, I have to do to the top and vice versa. So 2 times 2 is 4 and 1 times 2 is 2. So those are now equal. Down here, this says mark the number that makes the statement true. 1 whole is greater than n over 8. Remember, all n is a question mark. We don't know what number goes there. Well, let's look at the two numbers we're given, a 7 or a 9. Well, if I put 9 here, 9 is bigger than 8, which would make it an improper fraction, and we'd have to make it a mixed number, so it would be bigger than 1 whole. Well, we need something that would be less than 1 whole. So if I put 7 over 8, that would make it less than 1 whole. So we're going to neatly bubble in our 7. Get ready for those Iowa tests coming up by neatly bubbling in those. And you'll do the same for the rest of them. Just be sure to watch your sign. Number 15 and 16, we're going to write two names for the colored part. So we're going to write it as a mixed number, and we're going to write it as an improper fraction. Remember, a mixed number is a whole number and a fraction. An improper fraction means the numerator is bigger than the denominator. So here I have 2 whole pieces colored. So 2 would be my whole number. Then on this last one, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 out of 6 colored. So I have 5, 6. Now, when I come to the improper fraction, most of us are very good at doing this, but it gets a little tricky when we come to the improper fraction. Remember, the denominator in our mixed number will be the same in our improper fraction because we didn't cut these up into more pieces. We're still working with 6. But now for the improper fraction, we're just going to tell me how many 1/6 pieces are there. Well, here there's 6. Here there's 6. That makes 12. And here there's 5. That makes 17. So our improper fraction would be 17 colored pieces that are 1/6 each. So 17/6. Then down at the bottom, you're going to write greater than, less than, or equal to compare. Remember, you're going to look at your denominators first. If they don't match, we're going to compare them to 1/2. We're going to see if this is equal to, less than, or bigger than 1/2, and the same with this one. If your denominators do match, then all you have to do is pick the bigger numerator. Then the last row has mixed numbers. You'll compare your mixed numbers first, and look at that. Your mixed numbers don't match. So that one's very simple. You're just going to pick the bigger mixed number. The 2 is bigger than the 1, and you don't even have to worry about the fractions. But on number 22, your mixed numbers match. Then your denominators match, so you have to pick the bigger numerator. On number 23, your mixed number, your whole number matches, but your denominators don't. So you have to figure out which one of those is bigger than 1/2, equal to 1/2, or smaller than 1/2. So I'm going to have you do the rest of the back of this page on your own. If you need help or you have questions, please feel free to contact me. Thanks, guys. Have a great day, and I will see you tomorrow.